It is very easy to say something like, oh, I don't have any friends, or I'm struggling to make friends, if you are not leaving your comfort zone. I am not feeling that great today, honestly, but I wanted to get a video out. It is such a beautiful day. It's gloomy. I love it like that. It kind of reminds me of like the whole twilight weather, you know, like the whole, oh, wow. How do they do it? No, that was so off-key. Oh, ha. Wait. I don't remember, but you know, I don't know. Anyway, we are currently in my living room and we are about to paint while I tell you a little bit more about my craft club. We're going to paint a mug today. Now, if my energy is low, obviously because I am sick, I've been surviving off of green tea, I've been eating these salted crackers, I've been having these salted rice crackers. As you can see, we really are going for a lot of flavor here. But anywhoosies, back to the craft club. So I started a craft club last November. It's about 6 months old now, actually. I don't even know what sort of prompted me to start this. Well, I mean, that's not entirely true, but I have been thinking a lot about community. I've been thinking a lot about these memes that people make online, specifically the ones saying how hard it is to make friends in your 20s. And as someone who lives abroad, as someone who has struggled to find a sense of community because I live abroad, I do think it is difficult to make friends in your 20s, but I also don't think it's as difficult as it could be. Like, I think a lot of the reasons why people are struggling to make friends is because they're not putting themselves out there. It is very easy to say something like, oh, I don't have any friends, or I'm struggling to make friends, if you are not leaving your comfort zone. I didn't initially think I was going to go with a craft club, but I did know that I wanted to create some sort of community. I was always very fond of being creative. Ever since I was little, I was making my own books, kind of folding these A4 pages and pretending like I had written a book. I would create magazines, I had blogs. Obviously now with digital media, I have Instagram, TikTok, I upload on YouTube. And I remember something that really stuck out from my childhood was always keeping paper. Just these little memories, whether they were photos, receipts, and later this became known as junk journaling. When I was younger, it was just referred to as scrapbooking, and I just had this blank book that I just glued all of these pieces of paper in when I was little. And as I've grown older, I realized that there was a very big community. So when I was thinking of things to do and like different sort of communities to create, I was actually only going to go with a junk journal community. I wanted to find other people, women in particular, who were also interested in junk journaling and kind of just, you know, saving their memories in some way. I decided not to do that because ultimately it would limit the number of people that I would meet, and it would also limit me from going outside of my comfort zone. I wanted to meet different people. I wanted to learn about new things and different hobbies, and more importantly, I wanted to discover the city that I live in. I moved here originally in 2013, and I actually have a whole backstory on my entire life as a South African in the Netherlands, but I wanted to create something that would make me feel at home and at ease and allow for me to be more creative. So Rotterdam Craft Club was born. One of the biggest reasons why I started Rotterdam Craft Club was because I was lonely. And whenever I say this to people, people are like,
oh, but you have friends, been here so long, and you have friends from your university days or your high school days.
And it's just like, you can be lonely and still be surrounded by a lot of people. And just because you're surrounded by a lot of people doesn't necessarily mean that you're friends with all of them either. For me at least, just because I spend time with a lot of people doesn't necessarily mean that I am friends with everyone. I was lonely not because I wasn't making an effort to spend time with people or because I wasn't, you know, putting myself out there. One of the biggest things that contributed to my loneliness was sort of the unspoken expectation to do the same thing almost every weekend. A lot of the people that I was surrounding myself with were only interested in partying, drinking, getting high. And those sort of things are fun, I guess, in a certain life phase, but these were also things that I have experienced or, you know, been exposed to at a much younger age. Growing up in South Africa, and especially at the high school that I did, and with certain people that I surrounded myself with, I was already exposed to a lot of these things when I was like 13 years old. So when I was 18 and graduating high school and had gone to uni, none of that was particularly new to me. I'm not advocating for doing this when you're younger, by the way. I'm just saying that when you are exposed to something, you might lose interest in it, or it might not be as exciting because it's already something that you're familiar with. In my case, I have never been interested in drugs. I've never been interested in getting blackout drunk. These were things that sort of alienated me, I suppose, in high school and in university to an extent. People knew just not to invite me to these things because I was unlikely to go. It's just not my scene. I've never had fun doing it, and I've never believed that fun has to be loud, messy, chaotic, or late. Now, don't get me wrong, I have definitely had my fair share of late nights and partying. It's not something I wanted to make a habit, especially in my late 20s. With that said, when I started this craft club, I wanted to find a community that would be open to crafting. I wanted to find a community that was interested in traveling to different cities, interested in doing yoga, going horseback riding. I wanted to do something else aside from look forward to a Saturday night so that we could go out clubbing. That was basically what it came down to. The first thing that I wish I knew when I started this was that it doesn't have to be perfect. You just start and then you figure it out from there. A lot of the times when people create something new, they want it to be perfect the first time. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have any sort of, you know, reason for things to work out aside from the fact that I was running it. I am very detail oriented. I know myself. I'm quite type A, very organized. And if I have an idea for something, I just know it's going to work out. I don't know how to explain it, but I have that confidence in myself that it's going to work out because I'm the one planning it and because I said so. It might come across as very cocky if you are not someone that ultimately believes in yourself or if you doubt yourself. But I have done so many things in my life that have been so out of my comfort zone that trying to start a community was not going to be the most scary thing that I've ever done. You know, these people could just be like, yeah, sorry, we're not going to make it. And then my life would still go on. It is so easy for us to criticize ourselves, to say something's not going to work out when we haven't even bothered to try. So I was not going to put myself in that cage. Because ultimately, if you think about it, if you don't believe in yourself, literally no one else has to. The very first meetup that I had, 11 women RSVP. I didn't know any of them, and the first meetup was actually, in my books, a bit of a fail. It's very difficult to find people, in particular strangers, who are just going to be interested in painting with you over a weekend. So there were a bunch of different community groups that I was part of, but none of them had anything to do with crafts. And if it was the very predictable sip and paint. With some of the other meetups that I attended, it was always kind of difficult because you didn't really know like who was going to be there or like if you would click with anyone, because most of the times people would only go because they wanted to make new friends in the city. Again, not a bad thing, but if you're wanting to spend time with someone and bond over a specific activity, you might have a harder time doing so. At least with something that you already know you have in common, it's easier to build your friendship or a connection up from there, as opposed to just going somewhere or doing a random activity and sort of hoping for the best. The very first meetup that I had was at a cafe, and to this day we still do a lot of cafe meetups. But the meetup that I had was essentially just a junk journal meetup, or I think it was something along the lines like a bring your own craft, but everyone just bought their junk journals, which is a coincidence because that's actually exactly what I said my craft club wasn't going to be about. But as I walk in, I'm looking around and I'm trying to spot this group of women that I had invited, and it just sort of hits me because I realized I actually don't know who I'm looking for. So I asked the lady behind the counter who works there. So she directs me. I find this table, this big ass table. No one is there. My heart sinks because I thought no one had arrived. I thought no one came. I'm walking all over this goddamn cafe looking for these women. I see a group of women in the corner looking back at me when all of a sudden I hear my name being called. I don't know anyone here, so I can only assume it's going to be one of the craft club girls. So I look up and lo and behold, the ladies that were looking at me while I was looking at them and walked past them, they call me over and I realized it's them. These are the women that I've been looking for. The very first meetup was 9 of us. We all did junk journaling and we shared a little bit about ourselves, which was so nice and so wholesome. There was also another South African who to this day is one of my friends. Her name is Ké-leigh. I have mentioned her in a previous vlog. She was one of the first members there, and so were 2 of the other girls that show up regularly. Today, one of the girls, her name's Elida, is actually hosting a craft club meetup because I'm unable to be there because I'm sick. So yeah, I go there, I meet these new women, we interact, and we start planning the second meetup, which was a Christmas market in a different city. Something you'll realize when you try to start something new is that you'll get more confident the more you do it. You'll get better at it the more you practice it. And with each craft club meetup, I became more confident in who I was as a leader for this group, as someone that organized everything, whether it was looking for locations where we could host meetups at, whether it was reserving spots, whether it was handling all of the funds for tickets, going shopping for all of the craft supplies. A lot of these things were kind of overwhelming in the beginning because I had to budget carefully. I had to figure out where to go, how many of each item to get. With that said, if you are interested in creating a community, I would definitely advise you to not put a lot of pressure on yourself. It is so easy to think that something has failed if you didn't get it right the first time, and that is a mindset that will ultimately turn into a habit and prevent you from trying something in the future. You will be doing yourself and other people who might be interested in what you have to offer such a massive disservice if you just give up the first time. So tip number 2 would absolutely be to keep pushing even if things get difficult. I'm going to tell you a little story of the most difficult time that I've ever had in this craft club, and that would be our Clay Crafternoon event. That was the first time that I decided I would co-host. One of the worst moments for me in craft club was probably when our venue fell through right before a big event. Normally I'm not really stressed when meetups happen, except this was a ticket to the meetup, meaning people had paid to be there. The person that I was co-hosting with decided last minute that she wanted to charge extra to have it hosted at her place, despite me offering literally 2 months before. I was not about to make anyone else pay more than they already had, so I decided, fuck this, I'm gonna host this meetup at my place instead. Keep in mind, I didn't have anything. I had just moved. I barely lived in this apartment for a week. We had one table. I have never seen this entire community come together like they did that day. We had 2 girls come from different cities. One literally bought chairs, and I mean bought. She didn't bring chairs. I mean, she did that too, actually. She brought chairs from her house and she went to the store and she bought chairs for this meetup. Another girl who wasn't even attending the meetup came with 2 tables. She drove from another city to deliver them. As soon as we heard that this was the case, that this girl was no longer allowing us to host at her place, which is well within her right, we decided we needed a backup plan. My boyfriend and I literally spent the entire afternoon cleaning. That was such a chaotic day. I remember when that happened, I had a bit of a mentee B, and then I was just like, get your shit together, girl, because the show's gonna go on with or without you. And that is definitely a lesson learned, in the sense that things are not always going to be smooth sailings. You're going to have really tough days, you're going to have days when you need to rely on other people, but if you are a good leader and if people think that there's something worth showing up for, they will. There's a lot of things that I've had insecurities about regarding running a craft club or just starting a community in the city. The first one being is I host these meetups in English, which could sometimes deter locals. The second is I've wanted to make sure that people didn't spend a lot of money so that the meetups could be easily accessible. With time, I have learned that people will pay what they find value in. I can't make a decision like, oh my gosh, this might be too expensive, if other people are like, actually, we would pay for that. So, you know, going back to this original point of it's not always going to be smooth sailing, that you have to learn to trust yourself, that is what community is all about. I said I wanted to build a community. It's one of those things where I feel like your higher entity, or, you know, like the universe or whatever, is really going to take word for word what you say and make that happen. In my case, I never wanted perfection. I simply wanted more people to spend time with and do my little arts and crafts with, and that is exactly what the universe gave me. It's not easy to build a community, and that is my third point. You have to be consistent. As someone who works in social media, the biggest ick that I personally get from people whenever they start something, whenever they're about to launch something, whenever they want to build a community, is when they say in the bio, coming soon. Stop right there. Oh my god. The second you say coming soon, I've lost interest, because there's no date to look forward to. There's a lot of hype. Coming soon. What's coming soon? Don't announce anything until you've got your shit together. I know this kind of goes against my very first point of just like go with the flow and figure it out as you go, but there's also certain things you should be streamlining, and branding, that's something that you'll always be kind of like nitpicky about. However, when you launch something, it has to be clear what it's about. You want to make sure that people are going to remember you for whatever it is that you want them to remember you for. The internet is a crowded place, and they need to have something to look forward to. So before you start anything, have at least 3 or 4 things planned. And they don't have to be set in concrete, they could just be simple ideas. Essentially, if you're building something, you need to have a look at your target audience, and you need to have a look at the things that you are also interested in. It makes no sense to create something solely for other people, but then you, as the person that's organizing it, is bored or uninterested, or you don't actually want to be there. It definitely takes some time to get used to it. It definitely takes some time to figure out what to create, who to create it for, especially because the people that show up to the first meetup might not be there with you like through every little thing that you organize, but you'll find people along the way, and those are the people that you should be paying attention to. I have made so many changes to the craft club as opposed to when I first started. So when I say be consistent, I don't necessarily mean in branding. That itself is a beast of its own. You know, if you want to brand something, at least have some core colors and use them in social media platforms. I have changed the branding so many times as I figured out this craft club, but one thing that I will always keep the same are the colors. If you do not know where to start when it comes to your branding, just keep core colors. Have those colors, because those colors will be the ones that your audience recognizes you for. If you can decide on core colors and a core font, you're already set. Now, when we're talking about consistency, and this is something that I say to my social media clients as well, people like to get consistency and frequency mixed up. To have something happen frequently is not the same as something happen consistently. Consistently could be having events 3 times a month. Frequently could be having an event 3 times a day. It's always a good idea to have a time slot for the things that you're planning to create. So for example, the girls in the craft club already know that every second Saturday we are going to be having craft club. Sometimes we'll have craft club more than once a month. It's usually twice a month at this point now, but that's also because I have learned to delegate. And that's another important thing about being consistent. You won't be able to do everything on your own. No matter how much you would like to, no matter how much of a perfectionist you are going to need help at some point. There have definitely been things in craft club that have made me a bit reluctant to trust some people with, you know, managing these events, or like hosting them or making them co-host for some events. But at the end of the day, if I don't learn to trust people that I'm collaborating with or hosting with, I might as well just give up, because a community is all about trust. A community is about connecting. It's about essentially trying to build a friendship, establishing a connection that is so pure that you know that you can rely on that person. It's about having fun with whatever it is that you are doing or creating. So when you are being consistent, remember that you don't have to be the only one that does things. In the beginning, for sure, because you're obviously figuring this out, you want to know how often you can do this, how much energy is going into it, how many people are going to show up. You know the saying, like, there's too many cooks in the kitchen? Exactly. You don't want to have a bunch of people from the get-go, because it probably won't work out, or maybe it will, but it'll be very chaotic to stay on top of everything that's happening. My mug is coming along nicely. I painted some strawberries on it, and I think I'm gonna switch to some lemons in a second. I think the next topic that's kind of important would definitely be the topic of competition. I just want to be the first person to tell you that competition actually does not have to be threatening. Now, naturally, it also depends on how you're running this community, right? Because if it's something that you are doing for profit, it's completely understandable that other competitors could become a threat down the line. The thing about competition is it is inevitable, especially if you're online and especially if you're building something. And if you're trying to start a community, you need to be both. Now, naturally, we all draw inspiration from somewhere, but I am saying that you can take an idea and you can put your own twist on it. The most important thing to remember about competition is that it actually doesn't have to be a competition. It's not worth your energy, it's not worth your time, and most importantly, you could be taking away from the time that you would be spending on building your own thing. So while you're over there comparing yourself to what someone else has done, or wondering how you can one-up them or how you can make it better for whatever reason, you're just wasting time. You ultimately just have to stay focused on what you're doing, because you will see that what it is that you're working on bit by bit, no matter how slowly you think you're going, it will reward you. For me, that has been some of the most valuable friendships that I have ever had in my entire life. I cannot express to you how important this craft club has become for my social life, not just as a way to have new hobbies or find different places to hang out at, but some of the women that I've met through this craft club, they no longer feel like just craft club members. They literally feel like they could be sisters. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm literally getting emotional thinking about it, because I don't think I've ever had such caring friends, or friends that are so reliable. I'm not saying that the entire craft club is like, oh, we're all just braiding each other's hair. Like, obviously not everyone is besties. Not everyone hangs out at the same meetup every single time, or we don't see familiar faces all the time, but that is part of the journey. There's so much potential for more to happen that it makes me excited for how this club is going to go in the future. The second that you start viewing things as competition, you're gonna miss out on all of the fun. You're gonna miss out on the things that could actually make it great. So despite the fact that there might be a little tug of insecurity telling you, oh, that this person is doing something, or they might be doing that and you have to do something better, it's not worth your time. I've said this so many times now, but it truly isn't. Focusing on what you have, delegating inside that group, learning to trust other people, showing up every time even though you don't feel like it, you know, health aside, that's how you're gonna win. And I don't mean win as in like the competition. No, I'm talking about that's how you're gonna win for you. That's how you're gonna bring your vision to life. That is exactly how you're gonna create friendships, find community, and just build a better connection. As scary as it may be, there is so much good that can come out of just putting yourself out there. And it's not always easy to think, oh, what's the best that could happen? But when you're building community, that is the mindset that you need to have. It's really easy to complain and be like, oh my god, I have no friends, or it's really difficult to make friends in my city. It's so easy to come up with excuses. For example, oh, it's too far away, or I don't know anyone. And it's like, well, what do you want? Not everything's going to be convenient, and you want to make new friends, so yes, you will have to put yourself out there at some point. Ultimately, it's a lot easier to complain than it is to change your habits. And that was exactly me. I had just moved countries. I was really struggling to adjust to the Netherlands again, and I was complaining a lot. I was complaining, oh my gosh, I feel like my friends aren't making time for me. I feel like I'm the only one that's hosting things, because at that point in my life, that felt true. I was the only one really going out of my way to organize something, whether it was dinner parties, whether it was asking my friends to hang out. And at some point I was just like, I'm sick of this. So one day I got up and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have lunch and junk journal with like 9 other people. And I did, and it was scary, and it didn't exactly go, you know, how it went in my head when I was thinking about how it would go later, but it worked out. And that is the beauty in persevering. It's not easy. It's not supposed to be easy, Perseverance literally means you have to keep trying. The next topic I want to dive into as my mug continues to dry before I paint it a little bit more is delegating. Now, delegation might not come easy to those of you who happen to be people pleasers or those of you who happen to be perfectionists. Unfortunately, I happen to be both, so this was definitely a bit of a learning process for me. In the beginning, I knew I wanted to do everything myself because I didn't know anyone else. Even though I didn't have many visions or goals for the craft club, something that I always knew from the beginning was I wanted to create a safe space. The craft club is really just a stepping stone for the community that I envision. To delegate is not going to come easy if you do not have a clear vision and if you do not trust people. In my case, there are 2 girls who are really interested in junk journaling and one that's really interested in books. I have asked them if they would like to be coordinators of those chapters. That way I get to oversee everything. I still get to plan general meetups that I know people are interested in, but at the same time we also have different meetups that are coordinated and planned and hosted by someone else. As someone that's already running this craft club, this takes a lot of pressure off of me, and that's essentially what delegating is all about, making people feel involved, making them feel like they're also part of this. I guess the last sort of point that I would like to make essentially is that it's really important to know when to pivot. By that I mean, if something isn't working, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've failed. It does mean, however, that you might have to restructure how you do it. Now, this can be anything from how you invite people to join your meetup, to scouting out different locations, to deciding who's going to take over for the next thing that you're hosting. Initially, we had actually started off with a Facebook group, and then we moved on to Instagram, where we primarily use Partyful. I explained a little bit more about how Partyful works in one of my previous videos. I think it was like the Swifty Craft Club meetup. And so far, that's been working out really well because you get to send text to everyone and they receive it directly to their phones, which to me is much more beneficial than having to DM people. I mean, people are more likely to be on their phones in any case, so it's a lot easier to get them that way. Like, not get them, but like if you want to reach out to them. I guess for me, knowing when to pivot would also be kind of cracking down on a couple of rules. I genuinely do not like having to enforce rules, especially with grown-ups. Like, imagine telling a grown-up, no, you can't do that. I cannot. However, this has actually been an issue. Sometimes we'll have meetups, people will RSVP, and then they just won't let us know that they're not coming. It's just kind of rude, frankly, because it takes like 2 minutes to send a text message and you're probably doom scrolling anyway. In our case, what I've started to do is if someone hasn't let us know that they're not attending a meetup, but they always RSVP that they're going to, I just don't let them come. Like, I just change the RSVP to can't go on Partyful. If I've seen a pattern in your behavior where you've RSVP'd multiple times, said that you're gonna come, and then you just don't, and you don't let us know, girl, what do you think is gonna happen? I mean, is it a bit savage? Probably. I'm sure that anyone watching this, like if you have a community of your own or you've planned any sort of meetup, probably you like it if people let you know that they can no longer come, especially because you know how much effort and time and planning can go into planning something like this. I would actually crash out if this was a problem that we had frequently, so thank God that that's not the case. In my case, I've decided to enforce some rules with some of these things. Like, I mean, yeah, it's basically like a 2 strikes and you're out kind of vibe. But really, making friends in your 20s does not have to be difficult. You also need to put in the effort. That's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm not saying you have to start a community. I'm not saying you have to start a social club. I'm simply saying show up. That's all you have to do. It really is that simple. My mug is officially finished, and so is this video. This was actually a housewarming gift, and if you're interested in seeing, like, I guess a spring refresh and my housewarming haul, that was the last video that I posted, so you can also check that out on my channel. But Queenie, I'm gonna have to put our FaceTime call down because my energy taking a bit of a dip. I can tell that I'm starting to feel a little bit icky again. So thank you so much for watching. I will leave all details to the craft club down below in the description box. So if you're interested in joining one of our meetups or just following us over on Instagram, feel free to do so. Have a great day, and I will see you in my next YouTube video, which will hopefully take place outside of my apartment. Bye!